Welcome to Candidates of Liberty, a special series from Lions of Liberty dedicated to spotlighting libertarian candidates across the country. If you enjoy our work, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Hello, Liberty Lions, and welcome back once again to Candidates of Liberty. I am your host today, Marc Claire, and my guest is the Libertarian Candidate for Governor of Ohio. I am very pleased to welcome Mr. Travis Irvine. Travis, are you ready to roar?
I'm ready to roar, Marc.
Now, Travis, you've been politically active for quite some time. I know you first ran for mayor of your hometown. I believe when you were at the age of 24, you even made a documentary about that run called American Mayor. And now, about a decade later, you are the Libertarian Candidate for the Governor of Ohio. So how did we get here, Travis? How did you first get involved in politics, and how did you find your way to the Libertarian Party?
Well, I'd say my independent streak started at a young age. I was fascinated with politics growing up. I was always asking to stay up late and watch the debates and the conventions when I was a kid. And finally, in 1982, there was a third guy on the debate stage, and I was like, "Who's that guy? That guy's great!" And of course, that was Ross Perot, and I ended up being the only kid to vote for Ross Perot in my mock presidential election in third grade. So I'd say it all started then. And then, of course, I turned 18 in August 2001. A month later, the entire world was a much different place. So, you know, I was very against the Bush-Cheney administration, very much against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, very much against the Patriot Act. And as I got to college, I became increasingly against the drug war and things like that. So I thought all these things made me a Democrat. And, you know, as I continued to support Democrats throughout the early 2000s, by the time they took power in 2006, 2008, I realized that they were pretty much the same, and they weren't going to change any of the things that, you know, I thought they were going to change. So luckily around that same time, I was, you know, kind of looking for a new political home, and I was watching a Republican debate in May 2007, and there was a little congressman there from Texas named Ron Paul. And he was,
you know, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was, you know, he was anti-war, pro-civil liberties, anti-drug war. And I was like, whoa, you know, Republican who stands for all this? Who is this guy? And my friends told me, oh, that's Ron Paul. He's a libertarian. You should check him out. And, you know, once I checked it out, I was pretty much hooked. And like you mentioned, that was the same year, 2007, I ran for mayor of my hometown. So I'd say that's when it pretty much all got started. So
when you ran for mayor, was that around the time you were coming into your sort of Ron Paul / libertarianism, or were you still sort of in the Democrat camp at that time?
No, I'd say that was the year. 2007 was the year that I both decided to get politically active based on some local shenanigans that were happening with the university and city hall here in my hometown, Bexley, Ohio, basically colluding to rezone areas, and the capital would buy homes in the neighborhood I grew up in. And that's what I got involved with the mayor's races, essentially to speak up on behalf of my neighbors, because we had no representation in City Hall anywhere. And that's kind of why we were getting mistreated. It's also kind of interesting that I also had ideas on how to cut the city budget that were actually eventually implemented by the eventual city council and city hall. And I also had the keen idea to build the new police station, because we needed one anyway. It was my idea to build it eco-friendly, which all the you know, the environmentalists liked as well. But the idea there is that it saves money in the long run. So it's one of those ideas that both conservatives and progressives can like. So, yeah, I'd say, you know, that's when it kicked off. I tried to give the Democrats one more try in 2008 when I worked in the press office of Senator Charles Schumer in D.C. You know, and that was good. That was a good education in political communications, I would say. You know, the most dangerous place in Washington, as Bob Dole used to say, is in between Chuck Schumer and a camera. So I learned a lot there. But, you know, you know, I actually registered Republican to vote for Ron Paul in the primary in 2008. And I'd say 2009, 2010, when it became clear that I was going to run for Congress back home in Ohio in the 12th Congressional District with the Libertarians, that's when I went ahead and became a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party.
Cool. And I'm kind of curious, what inspired you to create that documentary called American Mayor? Why did you decide to make that documentary while you were running?
Well, that's because I am a filmmaker by trade. I went to school for video production, and that's actually what my small business does. We're started doing video production, and now we're kind of a more broad media company. But that was the reason for that was, in college I made a feature-length movie about killer raccoons I graduated and went to the Bahamas and tried to make a movie down there, and we failed to raise the money. So when I moved back home to run for mayor and basically, live with my parents as any good broke millennial graduate would,
of course,
that's when I decided that, hey, I'll apply my filmmaker skills and, basically run for office and make a documentary about it with my friends so we can show everyone else how to run for office too.
It's funny you mentioned that first movie you did, because I saw a very scandalous headline about you the other day. It said, Travis Irvine, Ohio's Libertarian candidate for governor, made and starred in a movie about killer raccoons. Travis, the smear campaigns are on.
Yes. Well, fortunately, I do have the Trash Panda vote. So the raccoon gods are with me. And it's actually kind of funny, a headline like that gets people to click on it. But the article was actually pretty good.
Yeah, it really wasn't a smear piece. It was actually a very positive piece.
Yeah. I mean, I've led an interesting life up until now. And I just have these different components that I'm interested in, whether it's filmmaking or politics or stand-up comedy or journalism. I try to take all of them seriously, and I try to merge them together whenever I can.
And why did you decide to specifically run for the office of governor at this time?
Well, essentially after I ran for Congress with the Libertarians here in Ohio in 2010, that was a year where we had full statewide access, ballot access. We really were at the top of our game. We had a full slate of candidates. I was just one of several candidates to run for congressional districts. And, 2010 in Ohio was a really good year for the Libertarian Party. And we continued to crush it until 2012 when we were Gary Johnson's, one of his favorite states to come campaign in. We had some of the biggest rallies of his first presidential campaign. And then, of course, I got my degree from Columbia Journalism School. And I was ready to help the Libertarian Party of Ohio's gubernatorial candidate back in 2014. But what happened was the Republicans here in Ohio got so scared of us that they came after our ballot access. They were threatened, thinking that we would cut into John Kasich's win margin numbers, because our gubernatorial candidate, Charlie Earl, was a former state rep, very popular with the Tea Party. And they were right. Charlie Earl would have done really well in 2014. So what the Republicans do, what they always do, is change the rules of the game. So they changed the ballot access laws for minor parties, made it so essentially minor parties had to get 3% in the governor's race or the presidential race to maintain ballot access for 4 years. If they fail at doing that, then they need to very arduous ballot access signature process where you have to gather up to 55,000 ballot signatures. So what they did after passing this law is, of course, 2014 comes and they pull another dirty trick, and they actually kick Charlie Earl off of the ballot over a signature technicality that up until that point had never been enforced. So it's pretty hard to get 3% of the vote in the governor's race when you don't have a governor candidate. So we lost
that. Can make it difficult.
Yeah, we lost ballot access after 2014. In 2016, Gary Johnson was on the ballot in Ohio as an independent because we did not have the resources within that time frame to get 55,000 ballot signatures to get the party back on the ballot, which is unfortunate because Gary Johnson broke 3%, but he did so as an independent. And then, of course, the Republican Secretary of State wouldn't certify his results to count towards the Libertarian Party. So we essentially had to take on the ballot access process for my race, and we completed that earlier this year. It cost over $200,000 in between our party and national. And now it is all on me in this race to get 3% of the vote minimum. Of course, I think, if we can get into how things are going over here, but I think we're going to do much better. And, I think people are really looking for another way here in 2018 in Ohio.
So you are getting that sense, I guess, on the campaign trail. How do you find yourself connecting with voters? What sort of issues are you able to connect with people on from a libertarian viewpoint? Again, it's actually pretty good. I mean, for starters, the Democrat candidate, Rich Cordray, and the Republican candidate, Mike DeWine, are two real duds of people. They're kind of like if snooze buttons became politicians. We got Republicans who are supporting us, and we have Democrats who are supporting us, of course, independents, libertarians, and non-voters. But, the three biggest issues we're facing here in Ohio is the opioid crisis. We are the second worst opioid crisis in the nation.
just behind West Virginia. And of course, Rich Cordray and Mike DeWine, of course, want to enforce and incarcerate their way out of the problem, spend more taxpayer dollars. And, the libertarian solution is, hey, how about we go and fast track a medical marijuana program that we were supposed to have here in Ohio a month ago. It's been completely botched by the Republicans. And we go ahead and prepare for full legal marijuana, because if you look at other states that have marijuana programs, the opioid crisis is 25% less deadly, harmful, and expensive. So we're the only candidate, we're the only candidates across the board advocating for that. And then, of course, economics. We're always for cutting spending, reducing regulations, allowing small businesses to flourish. We have a thing here that John Kasich created called Jobs Ohio. It's a completely secretive department that handles Ohio's economics and picks winners and losers in terms of what companies come and go from Ohio.
Sounds just a little fascisty there.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and I mean, if nothing else, we need to at least make it transparent and susceptible to an audit. And, if we find it's not effective or efficient, we got to cut it entirely. And then a lot of people are mad at Mike DeWine over things like Medicaid expansion, which of course John Kasich did. That's actually one of the reasons I've been endorsed by the Toledo Tea Party and the Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition PAC. The way John Kasich went about this Medicaid expansion, he basically circumvented the legislature and did it through some other board or agency. And Mike DeWine, who's the Republican nominee, was very strategically vague on picking of which side he was on this issue during the Republican primary. And then, of course, after he won the primary, he came out in favor of Medicaid expansion. So, I am the only candidate on the ballot who will roll back Medicaid expansion. We have 700,000 Ohioans that got on Medicaid through this expansion program. So, kind of like Ron Paul would always say, we don't want to just cut these people off, but we do want to see this program rolled back. And what we want to implement is the free market, basically, and allow Ohioans to buy insurance plans across state lines, and as well as let them buy pharmaceutical drugs, prescription drugs from Canada. This is going to offer better prices, better options, and kind of like any libertarian solution, it takes away the control from the big pharmacy companies and insurance companies and puts it back in the hands of the people.
Speaking of this guy DeWine, I saw a pretty humorous ad you put out. Something like "Spills the Wine." Can you tell people what that's all about?
Yeah, it's essentially one thing we've always done right every time I ran for office is we always try to make quirky commercials, and again, it's because that's what I do and what I know how to do. When I ran for mayor, we had a jingle that got put on Jay Leno. And when I ran for Congress in 2010, we had an ad called Give the Two-Party System the Third Finger, which just involved a bunch of people giving the ring finger to the camera, in essence, to give the two-party system the third finger. And that video got put on CNN and PBS and was called one of the most clever campaign ads of the 2010 season. So what we're trying to do is just, we're low on funds, we're low on attention, we're not in the polls, we're not in the debates. So we're over here, we're going to make a ruckus. And we're going to try to get some media attention that way. And Spill DeWine was an idea we had early on. It's basically talking about Mike DeWine as if he were a poorly aged wine. He's been in politics 42 years. He's been handcrafted by lobbyists. He's got an aroma of corruption, and he can be bought and sold pretty easily, although nowhere near Toledo, as we know they don't like him up there. So, yeah, that's the video we put out. It's already getting some attention, and if any of your listeners are so compelled, we are trying to get our ads on TV, because once you take them from the internet and actually buy some airtime on TV, that's when you force the media to talk about you and recognize you even more. At that point, it's like, hey, there's actually 3 candidates for governor who have put ads on TV. So if your listeners are compelled, you can go to irvineforohio.com and make a donation. And we're hoping to get these, at least, some of these commercials on TV before Election Day.
Yeah, that especially would be a really good one to be to running in Ohio. And Travis, you mentioned you're expecting and hoping to get much more than that 3% you need to get Libertarians ballot access. Let's just imagine for a minute that you do much, much better than that 3%, and you're actually elected the first Libertarian governor of Ohio. What are some laws that you would look to push forward, and maybe more likely, what are some laws you'd be looking to repeal?
Oh, well, sure. I mean, in In the likely event I am the first millennial libertarian governor in Ohio history, I would first of all look to fast track the medical marijuana program, appoint people to our pharmacy board who understand how important it is to get it right. Again, we've got people on the board currently who have, from what I've heard, purposely botched the program because John Kasich didn't actually want it to happen on his watch. So the next governor's got to handle that right away. So I look forward to dealing with that. I look forward to basically busting open Jobs Ohio, making that transparent, seeing what's going on in there, and again, eliminating it if they're not doing their job, or just appointing people who would do a better job. And then I would tackle Medicaid expansion. Again, we got a lot of corruption going on within the Medicaid program. We've got pharmacy benefit managers sifting $225 million a year from taxpayer dollars on price gouging. We've got CVS lobbyists who have exclusive contracts to the HIV and cancer medicines that the Medicaid, the people on Medicaid go through. They can only go through CVS. And of course, CVS is charging 5 to 6 times as much as the market value for these medicines. So I'm going to start basically just firing people, I think is what I'm going to start doing. And then, of course, in Ohio, it won't happen right away. But, the governor here has a line item veto power. And, when I get my hands in that budget, I'm going to go pretty much Gary Johnson on it and cut as much stuff as I can. I've been joking with the Tea Party groups, but it's kind of true. When I get my hands in that budget, I'm going to need more pens, really.
More big red pens. Now, Travis, our last question here. It's a little bit of a curveball that we like to toss to candidates, but I'm curious if there are any libertarian positions or viewpoints, or even maybe just a strategy difference that you might have with other libertarians. Is there something out there that you see other libertarians doing or saying that you aren't necessarily fully on board with?
Well, I'll be honest. In the libertarian primary here, I faced two purists who, actually, one of them, we don't know what he was. He's just kind of a crazy old guy. But there was a younger candidate who was challenging my purist viewpoints. And, in 2016, we had no libertarian primary in Ohio. So I registered Democrat and voted for Bernie in the primary because I saw basically Bernie people as potential libertarians. I tried to build that bridge to the Bernie people and try to bring them over because I knew Bernie probably wouldn't win and they'd be looking for a new political home afterwards. And I seem to get a lot of flack for that. A lot of people tend to find this piece I wrote for HuffPo and try to make it seem like I've embraced socialism or something like that. And that's not how it is at all. I think we need to be pragmatic. I think if we want to really build this political party, then we need to stop focusing on purist ideology. And I think we need to start extending olive branches to other people and other political parties on issues we agree on. That's in the Cleveland.com editorial board meeting. I made Rich Cordray and Mike DeWine shake hands.
I saw that on YouTube earlier.
Yeah, to basically congratulate each other for making this issue we had in Ohio on rape kits, untested rape kits, while they were attorneys general. They both did a good job, but they keep attacking each other over it. So I've had them shake hands, say, hey, you guys did a great job. And then, of course, I turned to the board and said, now, if I can do that, just imagine what I can do in the state legislature. So I think we need to take a pragmatic approach. So I differ with some libertarians on that stance for sure.
All right, Travis. Well, we're certainly wishing you luck and certainly looking forward to see how your campaign plays out. I know you dropped the campaign website where people can donate a little bit earlier, but if you just want to give the whole run through of how people can find out more about your campaign, connect on social media or whatever you like, feel free to plug away.
Absolutely. Check out IrvineForOhio.com. You can check out our videos on YouTube. You can check out our Facebook page. We've always got a lot of content coming out of the Facebook page. And if you want to just follow me on Twitter, I just got verified. So, hey, I'm a real person now. You can follow me at Travis Irvine USA.
All right. Well, Travis Irvine, Libertarian candidate for the governor of Ohio. We wish you the best of luck. Keep up the great work and keep on roaring. All right, kitty cats, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Travis Irvine, the Libertarian candidate for governor of Ohio. A really interesting campaign that he's running. Probably one of the more interesting campaigns in terms of ads and the things he's been trying to do in terms of media outreach that we've had on this show. And a lot of people have been asking, especially on our $25 Mufasa level call for our Patreon supporters, our Lions of Liberty Pride. It was brought up, what is the fate of this program? Not Lions of Liberty, of course. Lions of Liberty will be staying here through the end of time until we have achieved a full libertarian society and we're hailed as the kings of all liberty forever and ever. But Candidates of Liberty specifically was brought on as a short-term way to get in a lot of the candidates that we have met at the Libertarian National Convention, as well as at PorcFest. A lot of people we had met that we just realized were great people whose voices we wanted to get out there. This was designed as a show for them, to get their voices out there, to get them more heard in the libertarian community. So that was the impetus for the show, but as most of you know, there are elections on November 6th, and most of those campaigns will be winding down, except for, of course, any victories we might see, and we'll certainly be doing some follow-up shows, I think, with any of the major successes, or maybe just looking back on how the candidates that we've had on have done. But as far as the fate of the show long-term, that really just depends on you guys. That depends entirely on the demand that's out there, entirely on the feedback. Of course, we have me every single Monday with the flagship Lions of Liberty podcast, where I host interviews with libertarian thought leaders, as well as roundtable discussions like Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor, a very popular segment. And then Brian brings you his weekly shot of comedy, culture, and liberty every single Wednesday on Electric Liberty Land, while John wraps things up on Fridays with his look at the broken criminal justice system and the heart-wrenching tales. And triumphant tales, I gotta add. There really is inspiration everywhere that you find tragedy in these stories every Friday on Felony Friday. In addition to all that, we're doing tons of content for our Patreon, and now we're also doing the Candidates of Liberty show. So we really are stretched as thin as we can, but at the end of the day, if your feedback tells us this is something you want to hear more of, if the Patreon money starts to up even more, we might have to set some goal, a little bit of a higher pledge goal to maybe at that point we'll reignite the Candidates show as a full-time thing. At the end of the day, if you guys want to hear it and let us know, in whatever form that is, whether it's emails, whether you tweet to us at Lions of Liberty on Twitter, whether you tell us in our forum, our Facebook forum, the Lions of Liberty forum. That is our public group, by the way. Anybody can come on in there if you just answer a simple question about how you first found the show. Just make sure you tell us, your thoughts about this program, because at the end of the day, that is what's going to determine if the show continues and in what form it does so. So I do highly encourage you to support us. And again, one of the best ways to give us feedback is to, of course, send us money. Let's be honest. You can do that by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. You can also send us one-time donations via PayPal or via cryptocurrency. So head on over to lionsofliberty.com/donate if you just want to do things that way and toss us a little dough. But either way, be sure to give us feedback on this program, because it is a new venture. It is an experiment. It is something we're trying out. So if you are enjoying it, let us know. If you never want to hear from a candidate again, let us know. Whatever feedback you give us, as long as it's honest, as long as it's coming from the right place, we're happy to have it. And I'm pretty sure you guys are going to want to hear Thursday's edition. Of course, we're doing the show 2 days a week right now through the end of October. You're going to want to hear John's interview Thursday, because he's got a gentleman by the name of Larry Sharp. And Larry's done a lot of media, but I happen to be privy to this interview, and I think you're going to really find it interesting. You're going to hear some insights from Larry, specifically regarding his interview on the Joe Rogan show that you're just not going to hear anywhere else. So I do encourage you to tune in on Thursday's edition of Candidates of Liberty, as well as, of course, Brian tomorrow at Electric Liberty Land, and John once again brings you Felony Friday on Friday. Until next time, folks, don't forget to live long and live free.